All right, good evening, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Tuesday's best. We had that on the RaiderLand.com earlier today. Appreciate everybody who jumps in, checks out the morning hot links and everything else we have there. It's awesome stuff. We're coming to you from the Arctic Air Studios tonight. Got a lot of cool stuff going on this evening on the daily broadcast. We're going to talk about Texas Tech basketball, Texas Tech football, sports related gifts, all those things here from the Arctic Air Studio. If you were joining us on YouTube or on Twitter, hey, use the United Supermarkets text line 806-772-0197. Stopped in today, got some frozen shrimp. Going to do some shrimp po' boys later on tonight after the show. Market Street is where you need to go to get ready for Christmas. Don't wait, guys. Come on now. If you're doing prime rib, if you're doing all the brisket, if you're doing all that stuff, go in early this week, get it taken care of. All right, you guys know what to do. The earlier arrivals, you let us know that everything is good. Now, how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you? Oh yeah, you let us know that it's good by giving us hearts, thumbs up, everything else, and then after that, hey, you can share it with your friends. You can put it on Twitter. You can put it on Facebook. You can invite them in and say, hey, we're talking Texas Tech football, basketball, West Texas, things that matter to you happen on this show. So that's what we're doing tonight, among other things. In three, in two. Good evening, West Texans, all you good, fine, friendly folks out there who wish you were. I'm Ryan Hyatt, theraiderland.com, where you start your day every day, coming to you from the Arctic Air Studios. If your air gets too Arctic this winter, you need to call the bear, callthebear.com. Also brought to you by Domino's Pizza, domino's.com. You get the app, you watch football, you watch basketball, you eat pizza, and then after that, you got to go to Premier Sportsplex. All right, the game is on. If you own a business, they can set up a great health plan for your business. You know, everybody comes back in January, looking around the office going, my God, we all look like hell. What the hell's going on here? Well, get a hold of our friends at Premier Sportsplex. They're going to make it fun. The game is on at Premier. And by Boot City, one money saving mile outside the West Loop. You like shirts like these? I do. You like cool Western wear? I do. You like boots? I do. One money saving mile outside the West Loop. Still a great selection of winter jackets, and winter is coming. Maybe you're just looking for a belt. They've got it at Boot City. And of course, they've got, boots and everything else. Hi there, Chris. Hi there, Matt. All right, let's get it going tonight. Tonight, here's the rundown of topics that you guys will fire away on. You could already be doing it on the United Supermarkets text line at 806-772-0197. Greatest or best sports related gifts all time. As a kid, as a grown up, give God otherwise sports related gifts. There's Super Toe, 1978. Hold on, this is poor product placement. I apologize. Maybe you got a cool jersey sometime. Maybe you got a, and you got to be, I think, my age, because after a certain point, I don't think kids were getting like full uniforms for their NFL teams at Christmas. Like you'd wake up and there's the helmet, jersey, shoulder pads, the pants, everything. You ran out of there at 8 in the morning into the front yard, no matter what the weather was, and you were ready to play for the Dallas Cowboys. So greatest sports related gifts all time. And I mentioned it could be as an adult. Doesn't have to be something like that. Chris got Tecmo Bowl. I have it. Yes, I do. Still have the Nintendo gaming system. I keep around in case my son ever gets too mouthy. And then I can say, yeah, I can still beat you in that. Cotton Bowl tickets to watch Tech show up, sort of, against USC. We also say happy birthday to Bobby Layne today, the man who could have been head coach of the Red Raiders, the NFL Hall of Famer, longtime Lubbock resident. That in an alt history world, in 1981, Jerry Moore doesn't become the head coach of the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Instead, it goes to Bobby Layne, quarterback, University of Texas Longhorns, quarterback, Detroit Lions, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers. And and I don't know how many Tech fans even know this story or aware of it or how close it came and did not come to fruition when Moore was hired replacing Dockery, but there was more than a contingent, and he certainly wanted it. And how different would Texas Tech football have been had Bobby Layne become head coach in 1981? You have two different, I think, all histories with Tech coaches in coaching choices. It was after Steve Sloan leaves, and you had a guy named Bill Parcells on staff who would take the Air Force job for 1 year before going to the NFL. What happens if you give him the job after Sloan leaves instead of Rex Dockery? How different is that? And then how different is the landscape if in 1981 the powers that be said, "Hey, we don't care what's going on at Lubbock Country Club and down there at the Gin Hunt and Lease. We're hiring Bobby Layne, who had coached, who had done a lot of coaching, who had done different things." So we'll talk about that tonight. Men's basketball announcing today they're going to start a series with Texas A&M, non-conference. The Tony Barone Bowl is on. Nobody knows who Tony Barone is. That's too bad. How important is it to you guys that Tech plays schools like A&M or Tech's going forward in non-conference in basketball, baseball, or otherwise? No skin off my back. All right, so Troy McWilliams came and went quicker than the wind. Spike Dykes made great NFL players. Well, yeah, Troy knows. McWilliams comes in after Moore 1 year, 1986, gets them to the Independence Bowl. Bolts in this scene leaving the airport, flashing. Oh, there you go. Flashing the horns. Couldn't get out of here quick enough. We got stories on that, true and untrue as well. Sports gifts. Your favorite ones over the years. The cool things you got as a kid. What were your favorite ones? We'll go into more detail. I am curious as to how many people know the history of Bobby Layne, Texas Tech, or otherwise, or even knew that he was a longtime Lubbock resident, to say the least. I feel like a lot of history gets lost these days because, it's history. Off United Supermarkets text line. Let's see. Your Tech plus Tech sports knowledge, something to marvel at. Could you beat Don Williams in a Tech trivia cage match contest? I would destroy Don Williams. He would be the first to admit it. I would destroy him. Don Williams comes to me for Tech history knowledge. He comes to me for questions about Texas Tech. I would absolutely own him, 100%. Off the text line again from United Supermarkets, wherever you live. Great day, sir. Yes, Cowboys helmet. Yes, also Ram circa 75-ish. Talking about cool gifts. As a Cowboy fan, as a kid in the 70s, you should have hated the Rams, although I didn't for whatever reason. And I think part of it was like Merlin Olsen and Rosie Greer, Deacon Jones, the Fearsome Foursome, and all that stuff. They were kind of cool. And then the uniforms were rock awesome too. The Cowboys, though, were the only full uniform I ever had. I was, I think, second grade, and this was the perk of being the son of a high school coach, that he had access to, I'm going to say in Amarillo at the time, it's probably Buck's Sporting Goods. We got any Panhandle people that can confirm that, or otherwise Buck's Sporting Goods, whatever, that handled a lot of the jerseys and stuff. So I had a legit kid size, but a legit, as close as you would get today when you talk about buying like a gamer, in a legit authorized jersey, that you're talking like $200 now these days. I had that version in 1978, 77, 78 for the Cowboys, with, of course, number 12, and of course, the name across the back. Not mine. Why would I want my jersey? No, I had Staubach across the back. But it was the legit jersey with the tricolor stripes and everything. This one was the longer sleeve one, was the white one. They're really good. Oshman's, no, I think it was probably Bucks Sporting Goods in Amarillo at the time. I'm almost certain of it. But I mean, this was the type of thing you couldn't go buy this off the rack. That's the thing in the 70s and the 80s for the most part. You just didn't rock into your local store and, just buy something personalized or anything. Had no idea where that sucker is. It was really cool. And the sad thing, I outgrew it really quick. So I grew big, I grew strong, I grew tall, I grew early. So I didn't get a chance to wear it all that long. Second into third grade. Loved it though. What's going on with the dogs outside the Art Air Studios tonight? Texter Ryan, how are you? I'm fine. Dad brought me an old Jacksboro Tigers football helmet for Christmas when I was a kid. Those old helmets were so dang heavy. I'm curious as to what year that would be. So, and when it comes to helmets, I would collect helmets if I had more money than time. We're talking about cool sports gifts if you're just tuning in. We're going to talk about Bobby Layne. Happy birthday to him. How the NFL Hall of Famer, longtime Lubbock resident, could have been the head coach of the Texas Tech Red Raiders instead of Jerry Moore. And what that would have meant, we'll get your thoughts on that. Tech basketball announcing they're going to play A&M non-conference coming years. We good with that? We like that? We don't like that? We don't care? Does it matter? Did Oshman's morph into Academy? I don't think so. I really don't think it did. I mean, it's entirely possible, but it seems like Academy is like a national thing, and Oshman seemed to be a regional thing. Might be wrong on that. Hey, Wes, glad you're watching tonight. Hope everything's good in your world. About time you got here. We go on the air at 6:30. It's 6:41. That's 11 minutes past when we go on the air. You need to get your notes from somebody who's prompt. Texter on the United Supermarkets text line, you jogged my memory. R.E. Bucks, remember the greatness of athletic supply? Yes, I do. Legendary athletic supply. In love, though, you had Cardinals, have Cardinals. God love them. Great people. Cleveland Athletics. And there was one more. You had Cleveland, you had Cardinals, and I think there's one more going back in the day in Lubbock, Texas, for those Lubbock watchers. Yeah, damn right you're sorry you're late. You missed out on all the good stuff. Sports-related gifts. How many people watching tonight right now had electric football? The metal field, the little plastic players that we did. That was huge for me in the early 70s. I actually had one of the earliest versions of that. Jim Plunkett's electric football. Jim Plunkett as a Patriot. So this is 1974 before he goes to the Raiders. My brother, he gets borned up, and my parents are worried that I'm going to feel left out, and they're going to pay attention to the new kid. So what's the best way to buy me off? They get me Jim Plunkett's electric football set. The players weren't like what you're thinking on the electric football. They were crappier, orange and white, and it was not a felt field, but like a cardboard field, not metal, and it didn't last very long. It's still pretty cool. Still have your Cowboys versus Steelers. What era, Lonnie? That's really cool. That's fantastic. I want to come over and play. I'll beat you. I completed 2 passes with the electric football passing quarterback. I completed 2 passes in 9 years. I'm a god. Buck Sporting Goods in Amarillo. Bobby Evans Sporting Goods in Wichita Falls. Rooster Andrews, the rest of the state. I'll share your video since I was late. 2 or 3 friends. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I wonder how many people had the electric football. That was the deal. I don't have this handy, do I? No way I've got that sucker handy. I don't think I do anyways. No, I don't think so. Coleco electric football. Yeah, that was huge too. Late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Good timing on that. The last one I got, full grown. Early days of the Williams and I show. like around 95. I was buying a Christmas gift for either some relative or some friend or whatever, and I'm at the toy store. What was that, like, not KB, or I don't know, Toys for Tots or Toys for Tots? I don't know. And I walked down this aisle and there was electric football set, and I bought it and I took it to the apartment, set it up, and this really dorky chicks didn't dig it. They should have. They're still pretty good. You guys fired up about Tech and A&M in basketball the next 2 years? The Tony Baroni rematch. And was anybody there when Smoking Joe Wilbert took a swing at a Texas Tech fan and a brawl erupted on the south end of the Lubbock Municipal Coliseum in 1990? Anybody there on that time? Texter Bobby Layne used to hang out with with swing band my dad played bass for in the 1950s. God, there's so much more to that story that is going to be awesome. I can't wait to hear it. But yeah, Bobby Layne, longtime Lubbock resident, and that he was hanging out with the swing band does not surprise me whatsoever. None whatsoever. I'm good with them playing in basketball. I'd like them playing baseball as long as A&M can maintain a decent baseball program and not kill Texas Tech's RPI. Schedule them. If they're going to hurt you on the RPI, don't play them. And I'm only being halfway facetious. And for those of you from Muleshoe, facetious is a word you should probably look up in thesaurus. I remember the swing at a fan, knew the fan. Did you? Yeah. If you gave me long enough, I could probably remember his name. Became moderately famous. It was a father and son duo down there in the South End, there on the risers that spilled out into. The weird thing for that, we were down in College Station with the Lady Raiders that day. That was a day game at the Coliseum when the fight and the riot broke out with Tech and A&M, and we were watching this thing on TV. What little we had, and then this is pre-internet, pre-cell phones, and hotel phones are ringing, and crap's breaking out, and it was ugly when we got G. Raleigh White Coliseum that night. The word had spread. There'd been a fight. Tech fans had attacked Aggies. It was an ugly scene. Reveille tried to bite Kim Summerall at the end of the Tech bench, and about midway through the game, the Texas A&M men's team showed up and just sat down at the end of our bench, just glowering. This ugly scene there, G. Raleigh. Not good at all. So yeah, they're going to get this thing going again. So, Smoking Joe Wilbert and Tony Baroni. And I ran into Tony Baroni. Where were we? This was like in 2008, years after it. And he wouldn't like broadcasting or do anything. He's just like there. I'm like, hey, no, you're not going to remember me. You should remember me, but I had to say something. Off the text line, brought to you by United Supermarkets. I was at the bubble, I think, was that Mason and Ham. We used to scream at Gus's dad, Chuck Knobloch, to stand up at the plate. No, it wasn't. This was in 94, so it's pre-Ham and pre-Bunch. It's 94. Ooh, that was a day, quite the day. So in 1980, it becomes obvious. By the way, you guys can still fire away your favorite sport-related gifts. I wrote down Tech recruiting, but there's really nothing to say other than a lot of the guys getting in the portal, you want in the portal. A lot of the guys getting out of the portal, you're probably going to be pleased with. Either way, I don't know. Until they show up and play, it doesn't matter. I'm more concerned about Texas Tech getting high school recruiting right. Offense, line, recruiting, high school. So Bobby Layne, NFL Hall of Famer, one of the greats of all time. I got to tell you this story to get to this story. So at the University of Texas, he meets and falls in love with Carolyn Kruger, daughter of Lubbock doctor and surgeon Dr. Kruger. Um, she was also friends at the time with my great uncle, William D. Bill Tucker, and his wife, Lotta Bess, LB, great uncle. So I had this weird connection through the years that I didn't totally understand just how close they were, that they were really actually very good friends because of Dr. Kruger's daughter and Bill, my great uncle, while they're at UT and hanging out. And then when they come back to Lubbock, when Bobby Layne and his wife come back to Lubbock in the late 50s, I think is when he first started making their house. I think they had an apartment or whatever and lived up in Detroit during the 50s. And then it was late 50s when at least they began to make their permanent residence here. And there are a lot of people that don't know the history of Bobby Layne. I mean, there's some people that just don't know how great he was. Then there are those who don't know the connection to Lubbock. So retires from the Steelers in about 64, I want to say. So it's full on back here. During that time, he might have played a little golf, he might have played a little cards, might have hunted, might have gambled, might have drank some, might have had a good time, but he always stayed in football. And he did a lot of interesting coaching things. And one of the things he was involved in was a deal called the Big 44 game. I don't think there's probably anybody out there right now watching this show live who knows what the Big 44 game was. It sounds like a card game, like -8 cards or something. But no, it was an all-star football game that got started in the 1960s, and it was the top high school players coming out of Texas and the top high school players coming out of Pennsylvania. It was called the Big 44. This was back when you could have really cool all-star games, and it was really cool, and the best of the best played. And for years during that time stretch, Bobby Layne coached the Texas squad for the Big 44. And he would have different assistant coaches like Don Meredith, like Doak Walker, fill in the blank. Raymond Berry, I think, Hall of Fame, NFL greats. And he loved coaching. So we go through the 70s, and Texas Tech, obviously good football. Rex Dockery comes in, not so good. You're on the waning years of the Steve Sloan, and we talked about what happened and didn't happen in those years. Dockery comes in, he leaves to go to Memphis, and in 1981, Bobby Layne wants the job. He wants to be the head coach of the Red Raiders. He's got a staff put together. The guys I'm talking about, Doak Walker, Don Meredith, ready to come to Lubbock, be on the staff. Quarterbacks coach Don Meredith. I mean, he's got a lot. He's ready to go. But the intelligentsia and the Lubbock curators at the time could not get past his drinking, carousing, fun-loving nature. And all the stories you might have heard about Bobby Layne, not true. You got to jack it up a few notches to get probably to the true level. But he wanted the job. And he told Texas Tech officials at the time, I'll cut back the drinking, I'll cut back the, everything. I mean, I will be committed to this job. That he saw Texas Tech and what had happened in the 70s and just knew that it could explode and take over the Southwest Conference and make even bigger inroads than it had. And he knew he had the ability to do it. He knew he had the connections to do it. They hired Jerry Moore. Now, can you imagine what Tech football would have looked like from 81 to 84 with Bobby Layne as the head coach? They would have been really good. They would have got players. They would have time in the Southwest Conference in the early mid 80s where you're still shifting from the dominance of Texas and Arkansas, even though Texas had some really good teams there in what, 81, 83? I'm trying to remember which one, the last Great Acres team. And the rise of SMU. And I bring up SMU because SMU doesn't have a rise in the 1980s under Chuck Fairbanks and, oh gosh, who was the other head coach there? Fairbanks, Ron Meyer. That doesn't happen. Instead, it happens at Texas Tech. Everything you saw that happened at SMU happens at Texas Tech in the early 80s. If Bobby Layne becomes head coach, I have no doubt that Tech would have won, and it's entirely possible that Texas Tech gets the death penalty instead of SMU in 1986. That it might very well have been Bobby Layne. And I'm not saying he was a dirty guy. I'm just saying the guy was going to win. And how did you win in the Southwest Conference at the time? Governor Clements will tell you how you win. SMU will tell you how you win. So it's fascinating to me to think about the two different scenarios that didn't happen with Texas Tech football. One in 77, 78 with Rex Dockery. And that could have been Bill Parcells. Easily could have been Bill Parcells. And what happens there, and then Bobby Layne is head coach in 81. Unbelievable. Lonnie, at the time, no one would have cared about Layne's drinking if he won. I don't think anyone would care today. They cared then. That's why he didn't get the job. That the powers that be at the time couldn't get past the hard living, hard drinking reputation, well earned, of Bobby Layne. They couldn't bring themselves to do it. They just couldn't do it. I mean, the same reason why they didn't hire Tom Osborne back in the 70s, because he didn't wear boots to the interview. That's moderately true. You know? Off the text line, United Supermarkets, Kirby Hogan's future with Tech. Will he ever want to move on to a different school? And has he done a good job, in my opinion? He's done a great job, in my opinion. He's been a fantastic athletic director in so many aspects. If he wanted to move on, he could have. So at this point, I think the answer is already in front of you, that he hasn't moved on. I think if he was going to, it would have been a conference commissionership, which didn't happen. And now the landscape has changed where I thought he could have gone to a TV network, like a Big 12 network or something like that, and run it. So now I think, hey, he likes being, it's weird. How many people do that? College athletics, they like their job and they stay there and they do a good job. You know. Matthew Howard is watching. So yeah, there you go. Happy birthday to Bob Layne, the man who desperately wanted to be Texas Tech head football coach. He does not get the job, obviously. They go with Jerry Moore. It's a disaster. Although Jerry Moore resurrects his career at Appalachian State and ends up being in the College Football Hall of Fame as a head coach, winning 2 national championships there at Appalachian State. People got over it. The powers didn't. Yeah. And you know, with Jerry Moore in that time frame, he was too nice. Bobby Layne wasn't going to be too nice. There is a great book written by Bob St. John, who wrote for the Avalanche Journal in the 60s and early 70s. And he was friends with Layne. And he writes a book in the late 80s, early 90s, called Heart of a Lion. It's the ultimate Bobby Layne biography. You must read it. When it came out there in the late 80s, early 90s, I was living in Tech Terrace. And I wrote a, this is when you had a typewriter. We're about to go green, white, checkered, by the way. And I wrote a letter to Bobby Layne's wife, who was living just 3 blocks away from me at the time, thanking her for allowing it to be written. I said, "You don't know me. I'm a young broadcaster." And I was using that term really loosely at the time. And, just read Heart of the Line. I really want to thank you. And she was kind enough. She invited me over to the house. Um, you know, showed me some really cool stuff there at the house and everything. Just couldn't have been cooler. It was pretty cool. That was really cool. You know, I will say this though, that the things we don't know about what would have happened, him not getting the tech job, according to close friends and other people that I've talked to over the years, basically killed him, finished it off. That it hastened his demise, his death, which I believe was in 85, maybe 85, 86. I think 86. That he never really got over getting spurned because he loved Lubbock. He did. He loved Tech. Yeah. He went to UT, played quarterback, All-American, all that stuff. No, he loved Lubbock. And it was a conversation I had with my great uncle even after he passed, late in my uncle's life. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me this stuff when I was younger? This would be really cool. Anyways, that he said that he thought that when Layne didn't get the job, when Layne did not get that job, that probably hastened his death. That he thought that Layne thought that was the apex of what he was going to do in football. That all the college and all the pro stuff and all the playing, but that he was going to lead Texas Tech to greatness. And when the powers that be that were didn't go along with it, it just it sucked the life out of him for there. So happy birthday, Bobby Layne. Hopefully you guys enjoy a little Texas Tech history tonight. A little look back. We enjoy that. Basketball more tomorrow. What do we got? We got is that UTA coming up on the 21st? Lady Raiders are in action tonight in about 2 hours. Don't worry, Mark Finkner has not adjusted his time schedule out there in Maui with the Lady Raiders. He'll be ready to do the broadcast for you tonight. I haven't asked him. I don't know if he has ever gone to Hawaii. He's gone to a lot of places broadcasting. You do that when you're calling Plainview basketball. I know, I'm not joking, Mark. But I don't think he's adjusted because I've seen his social media timeline at what time, and I can totally understand because right now they're 4 hours later than we are, and it takes about 2 days to adjust from the jet lag, and then just about the time you're adjusted, you got to come back to the world, and it absolutely sucks. So they're in action tonight. Well, a lot of basketball tomorrow. Bandwagon Wednesday tomorrow on the site. And hope you guys are still enjoying the Raiderland Hot Links. We have a lot of fun putting those together every day. It's really cool stuff. We appreciate it. Mike says, thanks for the Bobby Layne story. Did not know any of that. Well, there you go. Now you know the rest of the story. All right, we got to end the stream for the folks on Twitter X and on YouTube. Hit end stream. In the stream, yes.